It's been 2 years since I did this video last time. Life has definitely taken on new meaning. My dad passed away, and it was one of those moments of triumph for me because I was able to finally let go of 25 years of hate and resentment and discord in our life, and was able to heal and to make an amends to him, and it was such a beautiful experience for me. It was such a huge part of my life to be able to make an amends to my dad, and then showing up for him, and as a son, created this ripple effect for me to start looking at my trauma and my emotional aspect of my recovery, because the emotional aspect of my recovery has always been dropped to the wayside because I always needed to be in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or some kind of 12-step fellowship to feel okay. I needed to have a bunch of service commitments. I needed to be involved at all times, because if I was involved, then I was not going to get loaded. But at a certain capacity, life starts happening, and I have to work out those emotional natures, because for me, emotional natures take on a life of their own. I tend to act out in sex, or I tend to act out in gambling, or whatever vice I want to look into. Those vices always lead me to powerlessness and unmanageability in my life, and I know that today I have to look at those things if I want to stay happy and free. And for me, drugs and alcohol were just a symptom of my disease. Like, for me, my disease is centered in the way I feel, how I react to life, and I have to continue to evolve and grow and find my path, right? And so in 2016, I think it was, I started trauma therapy. And I touched on a lot of like the sexual abuse and all of the things that drove me for so many years and that kept me loaded, right? Coming out as gay, or like accepting my sexuality as it was very hard for me. I feel like my abandonment of my mom leaving when I was 4 years old, and being sexually abused probably around 5-10 times in my childhood, and just being exposed to so much trauma at a young age, with both my parents being active drug addicts. Like, all these things played a huge role in how I viewed myself. And when I view myself as not good enough, I mean, like, I viewed myself as unworthy, not good enough. And so through therapy, I've been able to look through all of that narrative that I've been playing my whole life and learn how to handle all of these obstacles in my life that I've just continued to. I play into that narrative, and I realized over the last 1.5 to 2 years that when I play into that narrative, I start believing all those thoughts to be true, and those thoughts are absolutely not true. I found that through therapy, that the sexual abuse was not my fault. My mom leaving was never my fault. I wasn't triggered anymore. I was willing to look at that truth, willing to finally move on from all the things that blocked me from myself. Even at 6.5, 7 years sober, miserable as hell, and not knowing how to live life on life's terms. But the thing is that I'm worthy just because I exist. I'm worthy because I live this earth. I get to help people today in a way that I didn't know that I could. This year alone has been the most growth for me. I was a victim of domestic violence. In a 1.5 years of being gaslighted and learning how to deal with that, learning how to work through all that trauma, you know, because it felt like it was being re-triggered every day. And I chose to stay, so I can't be a victim in that. But I am a victim of these things happen, but what I do moving forward is what I have done. Life is going to be a whirlwind of events, and it's going to be good, it's going to be bad, it's going to be indifferent. But it's like learning how to cope in it in a better way. Instead of jumping headfirst into AA, instead of looking for all these outside circumstances to fix all of these issues that I'm having in my life. If I put in the work to get healthier and to work out my traumas with my domestic violence, that I will heal in my personal relationships. Not even triggering that memory, but processing it within a session. Something that I've been holding on to for over 25 years, right? And to feel healed, to feel completely free of these traumas has been the best thing in my life, right? Is to be able to feel like I'm coming into my skin, to feel comfortable enough to have my shirt off, comfortable enough to talk to people and to not feel like I'm gonna die because I'm so nervous. Being able to come in here and not be as nervous as I once was. Like last time I came in, I was terrified, you know, because I didn't think I had a story. For me, it's not all about me today, right? Like for me, my sole purpose on this planet is just to help as many people. And if someone can take what I'm sharing with you today and apply it in your life, that is amazing. And that's what this thing's all about. Like I can experience if I work on my emotional stuff is that I don't have to be in a box, and that's all my life is gonna be is, let's go to AA for the next 40 years, go to work, retire, and just stay in meetings. Like, that's an ideal dream. Like for me, I want to have a big, huge life that encompasses sobriety and encouraging life, you know, because for my whole entire existence, it's been nothing but a shit show. And growing up with addicts my entire life, he didn't want to be served with a restraining order. And so like he's made several attempts to get a hold of me. I just know my worth today, and I don't need somebody to love is not putting hands on me. Love is not arguing and manipulating and convincing another person to view you as how they feel like they need to be treated. And it's like, for me, I believe in compromises. I believe in being in a healthy relationship and coming up with compromises and not always expecting the other person to cater to my expectations, to my every need, but being able to meet in that middle and like trust that together we can build a relationship off something other than our expectations, because expectations end up murdering relationships. And so with him, it was just all expectations. Nothing was good enough. No matter what I did, the bar was always raised higher and higher to where I couldn't reach it. I looked in the mirror and I saw this, like this was like 2 or 3 days after this happened. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, this is how I felt 7 years ago. To completely broken and defeated and lost without any recognition of who I was. I don't know how to live life with somebody who puts me down every day and calls it building me up, and who says that he's there to support me, but like hates every single friend that I've ever introduced him to. When I want to know if I'm in a healthy relationship, I take it to therapy. To pick it apart, to tear it down, and vomit the truth. She's like, I have no flaws with this one. And it was just like, and that was crazy for me. And he reached 100% of my ideal list, right? And we did one on my ex. And he possessed 2 of my ideals out of the 40 that were on there. I'm going with what my gut is telling me, and that's what the therapy has taught me. And so walking away from a domestic violence relationship was very hard, and I couldn't be around crowds. I would have night terrors every night. I still don't sleep well, even now. And it's been almost 7 months. I can't sleep through the night. I envision Josh still, so I know I have more work to go through, and I have a lot to overcome still, but just because I paint this picture that everything is fine doesn't mean everything's fine. And being a male, it's a taboo to talk about domestic violence. And it's hard to talk about sometimes because I don't want to be a victim anymore. I talk about it, I'm viewed as a like, you're a man, so you're not a victim. And so it's like, that's really not the case, but I know that I am a victim to this, you know, but when I continue to talk about it and continue to feed into it, I'm a willing participant as a victim. The therapist that I'm working with now, her name is Molly. I was molested like 6 or 7 times as a kid, so I just never really connected well with men on an emotional level, as far as in a therapeutic setting. Because I worked with 2 therapists since 2016, and Molly was a therapist that I worked with at a treatment center that I worked at here. And she brought this other part of me out that, because I would freak out over the smallest things. Like, I think it was in July or August, I was in front of my friend's house just bawling my eyes out because a friend of mine confronted me over something, and I just started bawling my eyes out. It had nothing to do with the situation at all, but it happened to do with something that happened when I was 6 years old, when my stepmom went to prison. And it was just like crazy how like one situation brings in a whole shitstorm of stuff, right? And I found that Molly brought in this whole different level of awareness by just talking, not using these little balls that vibrate. Like, cause I did EMDR around my sexual trauma, and like I cured it, right? But like the abandonment and the like that stuff, it's like embedded and layered, and it's hard to like hammer it through. Molly, like she calls me out on my BS, because you know, like when you're in therapy, you tend to, so like something makes you uncomfortable, you deflect and you go to something else, and it's like you're like squirrel, like, you know, it's like, and with her, she's like, nice try, but so why are you uncomfortable right now? And I was like, I'm good. She goes, obviously not, your body language is saying something totally different. And so like by her doing that, she allowed me to work through the stuff that really made me uncomfortable. All the things with Josh really had nothing to do with Josh. It had to do with like my biological mom leaving when I was 4 years old, right? That he's gonna leave me, Josh is gonna leave me, because it reminded me of my mom taking my siblings and leaving, and always having that feeling of not good enough, and so that everyone in my life has left me. And so I had that feeling inside of me all the time. And so like I held on to this relationship with Josh for 1.5 years because I was terrified to be alone, because I spent the first 6.5 years of my sobriety alone. Once you're in that kind of relationship, I'd rather be alone, because it's like, I feel like you just put me on a choke collar and it's like my whole life changed, you know? Dealing with all of the consequences of allowing someone to have the power to take away my freedom, my sanity, the things that I once enjoyed, I can't do anymore. To where I have night terrors, night sweats. I can't sleep through the night because I'm terrified that he's gonna come back and do something more. And then he called me when he found out that I was dating somebody. I talked to him for a few minutes to just hear him out and just hoping that that would end it. But when you're dealing with someone who lives with borderline or other disorders, there's no rational with someone who's unstable. And I realized real quick that this conversation was going nowhere, and so I ended it. And then 60 calls later, within 20 minutes, it was just like I couldn't be left alone. But like for some reason, when I just lost it, when he called me those 60 times, I just started crying and I just lost it. I was on the floor in the fetal position. I didn't know how to live life at that moment. And I'm in school, I have homework due, but I just don't know how to live life with this guy antagonizing me and then making it sound like love and pretending to be something he's not. But like, I've gotten healthy enough to know that all the thoughts that were going in my head were not true. And I was able to have my few moments of powerless or hopelessness and then pick up the pieces and start throwing everything away that reminded me of him. To cleaning out my closet, to cleaning my apartment, and gathering my emotions and working through it, and not allowing him to take away everything that I worked hard for, you know. And then I talked to my boyfriend that night, and he told me he was proud of me for working through it, because he's also a victim of a similar situation too. And so it's really cool that I get to experience this with him. I get to be my stronger self, for someone else. Like before, it was I needed someone else to give me all that strength to make it through it. But when you become like so weak, like it's hard to be strong. But today I know that I'm stronger than I've ever been in my life, and that I have courage that I didn't know existed. You know, I'm getting on a plane for the very first time in my adult life, or in my ever life, or ever in my life, chasing love. We're gonna do a back and forth for a little bit to be in a stable, healthy relationship. For me, I'm going to North Carolina under the impression that if it works out, great. If it doesn't, it's a new opportunity for me to grow. That's how I see it. Is that my happiness isn't contingent on going to a different state for someone else, and if it doesn't work out, my dreams are shattered and I'm lost. Because I have found myself now. It's not based on people, places anymore, like it used to be. Like my happiness was always contingent on what someone thought about me. I always needed to do something. Like I did the geographic when I moved here and couldn't stay sober at all here. And then it took me over 5 years to finally get sober and stay sober, you know, and I'm grateful for that. But like over there, it's gonna be different. I know that I'm not gonna be in the city of recovery anymore. My game has to be stronger, and I have to remain humbled and learn how to grow in different areas. But I know that I'll never be in another domestic violence relationship ever again. There shouldn't be red flags. They should just be green flags. I let him live his truth. I let him be himself. I don't try to fix him. I don't try to make him into someone he's not. And he does the same thing for me. And it's really cool that like we can both be healthy in that part. Is that we're not trying to make each other a version that we have in our heads of what that person's gonna look like. They are who they are. He's as sassy as hell and full of attitude and knows how to reel me in and call me out on my bullshit. Like the other day, he wanted to plan something, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be available because I have to write this paper. And he goes, well, it's not my fault that you procrastinated it to the very last day to get it done. So you're just gonna have to make time for me later. And I was like, things have turned around for me in my life, and that I have a lot of peace, and I've done a lot of self-worth stuff, and I've been doing Insight Timer every day for the last 5 months on self-worth, and that's how I have transformed my life. It's changed how I view myself, what others view of me, because others' opinions should not overpower my internal thoughts about myself. Because there's this guy, Lou Reed, I think that's his name, or Redmond, and he talks about what others think. And he was saying he was eating lunch in a lunchroom, and he was wondering if people were wondering why he wasn't eating or what he was eating. And he realized how much of his thoughts were based off of what other people's opinions of them were. And I realized with me, that was like a spiritual experience for me, because I needed to have approval and validation that I was worthy of my whole life. And so when I came to that realization that I can give myself what others, like what I needed others to give me. And when I started to really dive into that self-worth component of my recovery, because that's the one thing that's always been there. My whole sobriety, from early, even before sobriety, like I've always had self-esteem and body image issues my whole life, right? And to be able to feel like other people's opinions don't matter anymore. Like now it's like, if someone says something sideways to me, it's like, I'm human, but like, and I still, like sometimes I'll take it personally, but majority of the times now it's not a devastating blow to my ego anymore. Because I know my worth, and like if you don't find me attractive, if you don't like certain characteristics about me, that's fine, I get it. Like there's certain character traits that I don't like about people, and not everybody is gonna like respect my opinion, that's fine, you know, but like I'm not gonna be crippled and paralyzed with fear because of someone's opinion of me. Today it's like, if I wanna be sober, if I don't wanna be sober, if I wanna live my life the way I wanna live it, and it's not in conformance of what you want for me, it doesn't matter, because today I have my truth, and that's all that I really care about. It's between me and God, and that's one huge thing for me, is having a higher power who's bigger than all of it. And if I forget that, how quickly my world will shatter. And gratitude. Gratitude is my biggest thing. Gratitude, prayer, and meditation are the 3 things that keep me glued into my serenity and peace.
Detox to Rehab wants to help as many people as possible, and do it the right way. Please subscribe, comment, and like our channel. Thank you for watching.